Hey everyone, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you're back. As I may have mentioned a couple times, that we're going to put the slowdown on the show for a little bit. It's not over. I just taking a break for some particular personal reasons. But my guest today, I do one thing I do in recovery is I try to meet my commitments. It's something I always, it means something to me. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do it. Whether if that's help you fix your water heater or be on a podcast. And Brandon, my guest today, had sent me a book, his new book of a little while ago. It's probably been a month or so. And I happened to go down to the cabin that weekend and I took it with me. And that's my reading spot because there's no TV and there's no internet and there's no nothing to like distract you. You better take a
Yeah,
book or something to do.
sure.
And I burned it up in like an evening.
Nice.
Sitting
Yeah.
around and really got a lot out of it. I'll be honest. When I first saw the title of it, I took a little bit of a jolt. It was a little clickbaity kind of. I thought, because I'm a 12-step disciple, man, and
Right. For sure.
but I get it and I understand. And once I read the book, it made sense to me. And there, frankly, there is quite a bit of bullshit
For sure. Well, hey, listen. So,
in
I mean,
recovery.
yeah, I'll tell Dan, first of all, you and I go back a while, right? We go back a while. I still remember, I still remember some of your stories you had me on. I think I was on yours, and this goes years back now. And
Yep.
when I put this book together, I was telling you, like I've been teaching breath work at recovery centers the past man, like 3 years now, right? And one of the things I find, even just with like self-help stuff, is like, man, sometimes you read it and I just want to poke my eyes out. It's like, or like, it's just like, it's just like it's the same rhetoric over and over and over and over. And it's not that it's no good, but sometimes I don't feel like people don't remember where they came from, or they're not meeting you where you're at, right? Hey man,
Yeah.
where you at right now? And uh, it's also not a lot of humor. Right, like not a whole lot of laughs while I'm reading a lot of self-help stuff, and
Yeah.
I
This is
gotta,
serious.
you're right. This is serious business, man. So your soul is at risk, right? So we got to take care of it. And there's another book, and this kind of idea in Genesis spawns from a book called The Thug Kitchen Cookbooks. It's a vegan cookbook, as a matter of fact. And like these guys, when they wrote the cookbooks, it's just I was like, they're writing it exactly how I would talk, like dropping the F bomb here, talking nonsense here. And I'm like, it was edutainment and it was fun and I felt like immediately at ease and I was like, wouldn't it be fun to put like, some breathwork books together along those lines, right? And especially, man, I'll tell you, look, I don't know anybody in recovery that hasn't dropped the F bomb at least once, right? Like, so, and to me, again, my whole process is when I go in, I work with these people, I always, give the spiel of, man, I've been in your seats, right? I've been in these seats and I've had people up there preaching at me or telling me this is what you're supposed to do. And I've also been the guy sitting there in the seats. I'm like, why won't this motherfucker shut up? Right? Like this guy needs to shut up, or like, I don't need this shit today, or whatever else. And I always tell him, like, listen, if you're sitting in these seats, you got a lot of shit on your mind. Right. If you're sitting in these seats and you're in here with me today, you got a lot of shit on your mind. And so we're going to try and make it a little fun, right? We're going to laugh a little. I know these guys and gals that come in here now where, I can be like, your daughter stop fucking with you, like, making, and, talking about like, it's funny, this book, right? And you said clickbaity, right? The 12 steps without the bullshit, a breathwork approach, right? This one I gave the whole group the book, and the one guy comes in and goes, my wife picked it up and she really loves it. I was like, that's great. I was like, what about you? I was like, so just kind of messing with them and getting to have fun. It's funny you also mentioned earlier, like with your podcast, how you've got people reaching out internationally, right? Or like maybe you'll be like, how did you even find me, that kind of thing. The thing that's been really kind of cool with this book, and I'm not seeking, like, I'm barely like, I don't even put my name on it. Just it's kind of like, just because it's not like 1,000% written by me, right? There's some generative AI involved and whatnot, but you know handing out the books, and when I handed them out, everybody came up like, hey man, will you sign my book? I was like, what, man, what? you want me to sign your that's kind of cool, right? And I come home and tell my wife that what it's like working with the paparazzi and how I have to keep people away and being a best-selling author is like really hard business. But just trying to have fun with it, Dan.
Yeah, man.
Um, and you
Life's
said,
supposed to be fun.
well,
Life is supposed to be fun. It is.
can't you just go, I mean, they wouldn't make you able to laugh if it wasn't supposed to be fun, right? Like, um, and
They
what
wouldn't
I
have
took
made
is high.
God wouldn't have made a duck-billed platypus. That's got to be
For
the
sure.
craziest animal in the world if it
Right,
wasn't
for
supposed to be fun.
sure.
Go
Right,
ahead.
right. Marsupials, what are you gonna do, right? And high praise from you even wasn't I mean, I appreciate you, saying, hey, you got through it and you enjoyed it and you found helpful stuff, but like the high praise from you was somebody reached out to you, was going through a hard time, and you handed them my book.
I
I
was
was like,
getting
man,
ready to
that's
talk
just
about that.
that was like I was like, that one hit, right?
Yep.
I already knew you'd like it. Otherwise, I wouldn't reach out to you. I was like, yeah, this one's written for Dan because like you're into yoga. You're almost in a similar space, right? Because well, tell me. We haven't had this conversation about like you're into yoga. Like when you read it and you thought breath work, what were you thinking when the book came your way?
I had no idea about the really when I got it. I do a pretty good job of like day at a time, minute at a time kind of stuff, and trying not to be judgmental about it. Like I said, the
Hmm.
title caught me at first, but one of the things that it was that I was really liked is that it's like, and this is something my sponsor will say often too, is that you were talking about these other self-help books that don't give you like concrete tools either. Like, okay,
Right.
dude, when you're feeling this way, try
Yeah.
this,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
that's what this has gotten. That friend of mine, he struggles, and you know, I see this dynamic in 12-step recovery where, like, if you become a certain level of retread,
Hmm.
like I'll just go with this for a minute. You're come into my meeting for the first time and you say, hey, and they say, is anybody new? And you raise your hand and my group pours 1,000 pounds of love on you, and
Right.
you're happy and you go away and you slip up and you come back and you're honest and you get in there a white chip and you go at, and everybody's like, cool, man. Thank you for your honesty, man. We really, you can do this. Da, da, da. And then it does it again and that gets pulled back and it gets again. And then before long, like the dude ends up being like ostracized at some level because of like,
Mm.
it's like we pull the support away from them after
Yeah. Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
can't, they're not doing as well as whatever we expect them to do. I try not to be
Sure.
that dude. And this has happened to this guy and he will reach out to me and I answer the freaking phone today.
Right. Yeah.
And he called and he was outside my house. And that's a little
Oh
bit
my
spooky,
gosh.
I mean, you're kind
Yeah.
of like,
Sure. Sure.
oh, whoa, hold on a minute. But yeah, I
Yeah.
said, yeah, you can come in for a few minutes, man. I said, because this particular dude can also hijack you
Yeah.
and
Right.
come in. And he was having trouble self-regulating, man. He just does.
Yeah.
He just can't. And the
Yeah.
book, and I had just come home from the weekend of reading this, and it
Yeah.
was sitting down there on my podcast table. And he was
Yeah.
saying that, and I looked down and I was like, here. And he loved the title
Nice.
too because he's been beat up a little bit in 12-step
Yeah, man.
recovery over his lack
Yeah.
of success,
Right.
and that's a weird dynamic to be in um to struggle in recovery and kind of be ostracized as a result of that. I think it goes against
Yeah.
every principle that we would say we have. But still humans are humans and they do what they do. But it was
Well,
cool.
I think
And I haven't heard anything back from him since, so I can't report
I,
anything. But
well, I hope he's all right. Hope he's all right. And I mean, I can talk to a couple pieces on that. I don't know if you know the guy Brandon Novak from Jackass back in the day, that MTV series where those guys be kind of foolish on
yeah.
there,
Uh-huh.
right? One of the skateboarders in there was this guy Brandon Novak, professional skateboarder, in and out of recovery 13 times.
Mm.
Right, in and out 13 times, and that's the place where I go. And I started first. I started going to his sober houses. He finally ended up getting sober. Right, nobody thought it was going to happen. He ends up getting sober after 13 years. Opens these sober houses. I would go up there and I would teach breath work to these guys. Man, they were, I don't know if they're retreads or what you call them, but like they everybody been through the ringer, right? And they needed somebody to just be there for them and do whatever, right? And not no judgment, right? And who am I to judge? Trust me, right? Like I've done some shit that we don't talk about, right? I've done some things, but but by the grace of God, right? I keep going on, right? And so who am I to show up and be like, you're doing it wrong, you're not doing it right? I just show up and you know, love, accept, trust, and have faith in these guys that it'll be all right. And there's another book that I'm a big fan of, and I share this during breathwork all the time as well. It's called the I Ching. I don't know if you're familiar with
Hmm,
that book.
I am
So
not.
the I Ching, yeah, the I Ching is it's literally ancient Chinese wisdom, but it's like 3,000 plus years old, and it's stuff that's got it's got commentary by Confucius. That's how old this stuff is. And in that book, it's called the Book of Changes. That's what it means. And they have what they're called hexagrams in there. It's actually what the computer hex code was formulated after, right? Hex code was formulated out of these kind of 64 hexagrams. And one of those hexagrams, it's basically alludes to like falling off the path, right? And it's going to happen to everybody at some point. The thing that we do is we get back on the path, man. We're gonna get distracted, man. We're gonna be over here, and we're gonna come back to it. And I mean, that's exactly what recovery process is. That's what the addiction process is, man. We've been distracted by our addiction. We've been distracted by drugs, alcohol, sex, booze, pornography, whatever, man. This has got you locked you up for a little bit, took you for a ride, and you're like, all right, well, could you just let me up off here on the left? I'm done, right? And it's time for me to get back to who I think I am, right? Let me get back. And you don't even know why you're doing it or what you're doing it for. You're just like, hey, I want off this ride and I want into to my next place, and that next place is your path. And sometimes, Brandon Novak, the thing I don't love that it took him 13 times, right? I didn't know him before, and I'm sure, like, I know, a lot of people went through hell, and people that are close to you and I, when we're in that place, they're going through hell with us, right? Um, but just on and off the path, man. Sooner or later, you're gonna show up, and again, I'll reference Alan Watts is where I first heard this, and this comes from Buddhism, right? It's be grateful for the sangha and the people on the way, right? And this is like your 12-step your 12-step group, or that place or another place. And what that means, if you don't know, the sangha is the group, right? That's the group. Be grateful for your group and the people that are on the way. And hey, by the way, if somebody leaves the group, yeah, that's all right. Good. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a part. Like, we don't, and when we hold on to people, I think that causes some. When we hold on to anything, causes suffering, right? We hold on to
Attachment.
anything. Attachment, right? Attachment is suffering, and we hold on to people. They're gonna suffer because, like, maybe they see that we're not willing to let them go, right? And then so they hold themselves back for us. And sure, we know that it's all like you and your own accountability and all that stuff, but like, you just let them go, man. Send them on their merry way. Be like, man, good luck. How can I help you on your way? Not that I don't want you here, but how can I help you on your way? Right. And that's it. So be grateful for the Sangha and those that are on their way. And I love that. Right. And that's how you talked about, people that the retreads. I like how you said that. And I'm not sure how many people know what retreads are, but I do. So, we get people that come in and out of the group, that come back to the recovery center. I'm like, man, welcome back. How are you? Right. Good to see
Yep.
you. Like, I mean, I ask them how they're doing. We know they're probably not doing that great, but and they're probably giving themselves a raft of shit. They're already, man, you know how it is when you know you've done wrong, right? You don't need the next person next to me, man, you fucked up. Okay, thanks. Didn't pick up on that myself, right? Like, that's why
Yeah.
I
Right.
drag my ass in here. I don't need somebody else let me know. What I need is somebody saying, hey, what kind of support can I give you? Right? What kind of support can I give you? And again, for me, going in there and doing the breath work, like I said before, we started this, I had done another book, almost not very similar book. Uh, but these guys are steppers, man. These guys are in recovery, and these are the people that I talk to all the time. I was like, well, how can I give them something, a framework, something they can look in and use later, have a laugh. I loved actually giving this book to him for the first time, and I still remember the first guy like picking it up and like laughing at it, and I was like, man, what are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? I want to pull it up, right? Like, I mean, because I loved it, and what did he say? Because I was like, yeah, what are you laughing at? He goes, this is it, right? So for those of you that are tuning in and checking it out, there's a warning in the book, right? Warning says this book contains profanity, dark humor, and actual helpful information. If you're easily offended, maybe stick to coloring books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're ready to do the work and stop making excuses, keep reading, right? So when he's and I just remember that like sticking so clearly, just like just making somebody laugh in a moment where I know that they're going through some shit. Like this is a guy I know that, his wife's at home, he's got two kids and he's a young guy and it can't be easy to be away from your young kids. Like what do you tell them when you come home? So man, some empathy, right? But all that stuff for these people that are in it because again, I've been through it, right? Been through it. Um so that's the reason for the book. And again, Dan, I thought of you. I really did. I was like, you know what, man? I want to get out there and talk about this podcast. I want to talk about this book. And who would I want to reach out to? And I reached out to you again, being somebody in yoga, right? Which is where a lot of these breathwork practices spawn
Hmm.
from. And who's a stepper and who's just a good all around dude conversation. And that was you, man. So I was like, oh, what's
Well,
Dan
thank
up
you,
to?
man. I'm
Yeah,
honored.
man.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
was glad to hear from
yeah.
you. And I keep an eye out on you too. I was, with the social media and stuff, and you see a little of this going on and a little of that going on. Yeah, and I haven't, well, because I gave the book, you sent me a book for free. So as soon as the guy walked out the door with mine, I was on Amazon getting me a new one. Uh,
Awesome. Yeah,
and, uh,
yeah, yeah. Good for you. Thank
and
you.
I did. That's one of the things I got to do laughing that day too. By like like I love at the end of it, the final note. You got this, you beautiful disaster.
Yeah,
Uh,
right,
and
right.
and you know introduction, why this shit actually works. It's real
Right,
talk. And that's we did a
right.
podcast, and the other one that my sponsor and I do is called I am one two. The letter I, like an iPad, small
Yeah,
I, letter
yeah,
M, one, two, because we've got this movement in Louisville giving the 12 steps to anybody who wants it. You don't have to
yeah.
qualify with something. You don't have to be an alcoholic. You don't have to, or maybe
Right.
you're a whole bunch of things. And we have,
Yeah.
there is something about that identification that we do. There is something to that. And I know there's a lot of gingerbread around about people saying, well, I'm a recovering alcoholic, or I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I still say the reason why I say I'm an alcoholic is because that guy that's sitting over there, it's his first meeting. He needs to hear me say that.
Yeah,
It's not for
yeah,
anything else. It's for that new
yeah,
guy. And
yeah.
but we need to say something. So I somehow a friend of mine come and told me where I got it from. I didn't know where I got it from. But I said one day, hey, I'm Dan and I am one too. I am one also. I'm one
There
of
you go.
us. We're
Yeah,
here
yeah.
together trying to do this thing together. And I
That's
have a
right.
sponsee that was so much fun, and he's such a great friend today. 3 years and something sober now.
Nice.
It's rocketing, man. He's an RN now and doing tons of cool stuff. I just love him to death and love to watch him. But he come in one day right after we read There's a Solution. The assignment was to read chapter 2 in the big book. And he said, he
Right,
come in the door, man. I know where you got that. I was like, got what? He said, that I
right.
1 2 thing. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
enlighten me because I don't
Yeah,
know
let
where
me
I
know.
got it.
Yeah.
And at the end of that chapter, it says something I could normally I have a big book closer, but they're down our podcast table. It says something that our hope is that people will read this book and they will say, I have this thing too, or I want this thing
Mm,
too, or have this thing too, or
right.
something like that.
Yeah.
And but my point on where I was going with this to come back was our last episode, it was middle September 17th, was swearing to become spiritual. And my sponsor talks
Swear.
about somebody gave him permission at a meeting. Have you ever talked to higher power for real? Like you talk to your friends,
Yeah.
because he's had this thing where you got to be all dogmatic and proper. And he gave him some instructions to go home and cuss him out. Ask him,
Yeah.
why in the fuck did you make my dad an alcoholic? Why in the,
Mm,
and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and it freed him. And he will say that
yeah.
that night of going home, and he said, I felt stupid, but something, how sometimes you hear some stupid advice from some old timer or
Yeah.
whatever, but you
Yeah.
go home
Yeah.
and you go, well, what the heck, I will give her a try,
Right.
Let's give it a
Right, right,
spin.
right.
Well, what, how can it hurt? I guess God might just
Right.
strike me with lightning right here, and that'd be it if that's what happens.
R-
But,
Right.
but he did that, and he'd been looking for a job, and he couldn't get one. He was homeless in Minnesota, and his family had sent him away. He talks about being up there in the wintertime, and he didn't even think to bring a coat. And he's up in
Mm.
the Minnesota in the wintertime without a coat, needing a
That's
job because to stay in this homeless place that he was staying in this recovery center, it was a
right.
requirement that you get a job or it's a
That's
little bit
right.
funny, I understand it because But then it gets like you get a job, and it's not really under my power to get a job necessarily, right?
Sure, right,
But the next day, the next morning, he woke up and a guy comes into the lobby and says, "Hey, man, I got a couple openings for this job position, and who wants it?" And so he had a job the next morning, and things
nice.
just started
Yeah.
happening after he'd done that. And we kind of joke around about this stuff. We go to a lot of meetings that'll say on the wall stuff of like, profanity is not a sign of spirituality.
Mm.
And certain meetings don't allow you to cuss. They
Yeah,
just say it
yeah, yeah.
in the readings. And again, each meeting's autonomous. And if you don't want me to
Sure.
cuss at your meeting and you say that and you make it plain to me,
Right,
I won't. Just
right.
like I don't
Yeah,
cuss around. I never cussed around my grandma either.
right, right,
I
right.
just didn't.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I don't think there's I'm a little hesitant to people that hold themselves in the regard. I almost don't trust somebody don't cuss a little bit. Uh,
Well, it's fun, Dan. It's so funny you bring that up. This part of my journey was exactly that. This is actually going way, so my podcast now is still under the same RSS feed as Spiritual Dope. It's currently Spirit of the Deal. But as I was coming up with and working along that podcast, I gone down to talking again about things that showed up for you when you needed it. There was this place when I was living in Jersey, had no idea that there was like a Zen Buddhist monastery like 7 minutes away from my house, man. And I needed some of that in my life because I was just trying to figure out, latch onto or connect to source, higher power, energy, right? And the I don't know if it's a Buddhist reverend or what, man. Like he was the guy giving the speech, and he would drop the F bomb and some other words, and immediately like all resistance dropped away, man. I was like, man, cool. We can be ourselves here, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
kind of what you're saying. It's kind of what you're saying when if somebody drops the F bomb, like, all right, cool, right? And hey, maybe not everywhere, and that's okay, right? There's a time and a place, but when we're doing the work that we're doing, trying to let everybody know that they're accepted, how they show up, the any way they show up, as you are, acceptance is a bitch, right? Like it's a bitch. Like you can walk into a room and tight as hell, especially if you're coming in off the streets, especially as you're going through a bunch of shit, already beating yourself up. But like, man, somebody like cracks a joke, drops an F bomb or says something a little off color, lets you know that they're human and you can be human too, right? I mean, that's
yep,
really kind of what it boils down to. And again, that's the book, right? The book is trying to talk to somebody that's already got enough judgment going on in their life, right?
yep, yep,
And
no doubt.
and they can accept themselves as that beautiful disaster. So a big piece of this, right? And the other thing that's a big piece of this is you talk about the old timer telling you about the stuff. You go home, you try it out, and lo and behold, something cool happens, right? Something works, right? This guy, he goes home, he swears at God. Next thing you know, he's got a job, right? So I grew up my entire life with a hippie mom, right? Like hippie mom, always being like,
Mm.
be aware, The funny thing about that I Ching book is, she would use it while I was growing up, and it's a cloth like really off yellow covered book, and that was her I Ching book. And then I started to get into it. And the book that I bought because Carl Jung did the introduction on it. Right, had a gray cover, paperback cover. Book shows up in my house. I open it up, and man, it's the same fucking book that my mom had always used her entire life. I mean, just like that. I wasn't looking for it. I didn't pick it because of it. I had no idea that it was the same book. None of it, right? And so
Yeah.
I'd run around with that book. Now, the second part of it is like, this is the type of stuff with the breath work, mindfulness, and meditation. So when I show up at these places and I teach the breath work, mindfulness, and meditation, I'm like, man, when it works for the first time, you're a little pissed off. You're like, man, what? Stop it. Like, and you're almost mad that it works. Why? Because like man, we've been growing up our whole lives being like, man, you should meditate. Man, you should do some breath work. Man, you should like do all these things. You're like, not for me. And I'm not a tree hugger. Like that's not my vibe, man. Right? I'm not crunchy like that. Like especially if you're down in the south, right? Like, somebody catch you meditating, you might get taken out. Right? Like, right? And so, you go and you do it and then it works. You're like, then you're just like pissed because the thing is, it has always been available to you, but you never used it, right? Always been available to you, never used it. You talk about your buddy. The emotional regulation, that's exactly what's in this book. It does teach you like what you'll find in the book, by the way, for for the listeners, yeah, we walk through the steps, but we also walk through a little bit of the science behind like, why the breath work works, what it's doing to your your emotional system. It's using your body to drive your physiology, changing your body chemistry through the breath work practices that you do. Um, but you don't get taught that, right? You don't get taught that. Who's who's ever run up to you and be like, you've been on autopilot, your body, and this is what I teach all the time, man. So I walk up there, I'm like, you know what the deal is, man? Like your body, comes up, most of us feel this anxiety and overwhelm in our chest, right? We get that anxiety and overwhelm in our chest, and we're like, oh shit, it's time to fight. Oh shit, it's time to run. Oh shit, it's fight or flight, right? Fight or flight. That's that tension. It comes up in our body, and we never question our body, right? We're like, oh, body knows, man. It's time. Whoa, better look behind you, right? But the thing is that the body and the brain and this mechanism, what is it? The whole meat suit is set up for like, I don't know, 300, 400 years ago, we were, coming out of the caves and we heard a twig snap. We're like, oh shit, that's a bear. We better get ready. We better, something, it's going to go down. We're not in that situation so much anymore. You might be, Dan, because sometimes you're like, hey, let's go scare some critters, right? Now, but the bulk of us, we don't have that so often. But the body and the brain and this whole system hasn't caught up to that yet, right? Um, and so what we do is, I teach the group like, how do we, all right, so I'm feeling this in my chest. That's my opportunity to take a diaphragmatic breath, right? Because when we breathe with our diaphragm, we signal to the body. We signal to the brain. We use our body purposely to signal to the brain. We're cool, man. We're good. We're good. And we give ourselves a moment too. We give ourselves a moment to catch it and interrupt it, right? Have you heard of the default mode network? You familiar with it? I don't know if you talk about it on your show or not. Default mode
No,
network.
I've heard of it, but I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like your brain that just says, hey, your brain's lazy, man, right? Like your brain takes up a lot of resources. Your mind takes up a lot of resources, always on. It's got a lot of other shit to run, like your blood, your, processing urine, growing that beautiful hair of yours, Dan. You know what I mean? Keeping you looking good, keeping you smiling. The last thing it wants to do is figure out how to keep you alive and survive, right? And it's going to use whatever it's always used that has worked. Doesn't mean that it's worked really well, right? It's just worked. Now, the thing is that we've almost gotten to the point. So that's your default mode network. It's just like your constant train of code that just keeps going. This has kept Dan alive for this long. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Don't stop it, right? Why would we stop it? Do we know, this change? Nope. This is Dan loves it like this, right? Um, Sooner or later, though, what happens is the things that kept us alive have kept us in like this heightened place. Has kept us locked in survival, and starts to become a thing that's starting to kill you
Yeah.
now. Right? And so what we want to do is again, I go around the room and I ask them. I say, hey man, where do you feel anxiety and overwhelm? Right? You get in a conversation with a significant other, where you feel it in your body. 90% of them, and the right answer is your chest and your shoulders, right? Like, and so what happens is you breathe into your chest, ready for a fight, right? And so, and the reason I ask them is like, okay, because that way, just like if you're driving a car, check engine light comes on. What do? You're like, all right, I pull over and I check it out, right? That's the same thing. That feeling in your chest, that's your check engine light. It's popping up, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
historically, you've said, "Ooh, ooh, I'm scared," or "I'm about to fight. I'm just gonna roll with it." Now we're gonna interrupt the default mode network. We're gonna take it out of like revving us at like 8,000 RPMs, and we're gonna drop it. Right? We're gonna drop. We're gonna catch it and be like, "Man, I forgot. I need to shift gears." Right? It's time to shift gears. It's time to drop down. It's trying to like gear up or whatever. Let's put it in neutral. But the thing is unless you know what your trigger is, unless that light comes up on your dashboard, you kind of don't know, right? Like you're not paying attention. So once it pops up, that's when you get the opportunity to do a default mode network interrupt, pattern interrupt. And that's where you say, hey, take a deep breath. And a lot of people think that, when we go to the doctor, Dan, doctor says, take a deep breath. What do? We go pop up our chest and like, whoa, we get up there and that's not a deep breath. We're taking in a lot of air, but we're taking almost a shallow breath and we're priming ourselves. So if your heart rate went up because you went to the doctor's office and they told you to take a deep breath, that's because you put yourself into fight or flight, man. You jacked up your heart rate. So what you want to do is you breathe in through your nose and you let your belly pop out a little bit, your shoulders are dropped down. Next thing you know, like you take 2 breaths like that, you changed everything just in that moment, right? And so it's a pattern interrupt. You're interrupting your default mood network. You're stopping you get the opportunity to be like, man, it's kind of like, you walk up to a bar that you've been going to all the time, and you keep walking up to it, and each time you go in, it's a shit show, but you keep going in anyway. But like you show up that one day and you finally realize, man, if I go in there, it's going to be a shit show. How about we don't go in today, right? And now here's and just like kind of like that analogy, it's like we're not always going to catch it, man. Not You're not always going to catch it, and that's why we call it, Dan. You got a yoga practice, right?
Right.
You got a meditation practice, right? Yeah, you know anybody that's got a meditation or yoga perfection or yoga
Yeah.
I'm done? Like nobody's ever done with it. It's just a practice, and
Yep.
some days you nail it. Um, and I don't know that you necessarily get better, but it helps a lot. And if you don't use it,
I
you
think you
will
build new
notice.
habits,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know about, if better is the right word, but you
yeah,
can, the
yeah.
neuroplasticity and all that,
That's
that
the
you
whole
can,
thing, man. Yeah,
because I
yeah,
was thinking, and I was just telling, we use this app called Marco Polo. Have you heard
yeah,
of
yeah.
it?
Yes,
And
sir.
that's how I do 90% of my communication with my friends is that way. Because that way we don't have to sometimes dialogue is required where we need to get on the horn together. There's sometimes that
For
that
sure.
is required. But
Yeah,
for the most part, everybody's going okay and we can keep in touch and we don't have to intersect in a point of time. And I
yeah, yeah.
find myself listening to Marco Polo's on my ride home from work, and
That's great.
responding
Yeah,
back, and
sure.
you can
Yeah,
do it when you can listen when it's convenient, you can talk back when it's convenient.
that's
And
right.
some guys give me 4 o'clock in the morning Marco Polos. It don't bother me because I'm protecting myself. And I love
Yeah,
to wake up and go, oh, cool. I'll get to listen to Travis for a little bit this morning.
there you go.
But I was telling him about that. I had a podcast today, and I was saying, that deep breath, that belly breath, and I think
Hmm.
about that too, like when, because a lot of our evening yoga classes are like more like meditate and rejuvenate and
Hmm.
slower moving. I love like my staple is a power vinyasa that kicks my ass and I melt into a puddle of sweat at the end of it. And it's
Sure.
90 degrees. I love that. But I also like that slow stuff and the breathing and the cues, they don't tell you to like take a deep breath and fill your chest with air.
Yeah.
The cue will be fill your belly with air,
Right. Right.
and
Yeah.
that's not really what you're doing, right? I mean,
Nah.
your belly
Nah.
doesn't get full of air. But the
Yeah.
cue of allowing yourself to put that entire full breath into place. And I noticed,
Yeah.
I was saying when I was coming home, that's like a default for me today. That when that fight or flight motion hits, whatever it happens to be, that bam,
Right.
and I feel
Yeah.
that chest tighten up, and
Yep.
is some big, deep freaking breaths, and it's defaulted to me now that I don't even
There
think
you
about
go.
it anymore.
That's right.
You
That's
know,
right. Yeah.
box breathing is another staple for me.
100%. Yeah.
Sometimes, I know the staple is the four
Yeah.
seconds, but I don't think it really makes a lot of difference. Sometimes I find myself, one of the things is it like you said, it's a pattern interrupt because I'm starting to
So.
count and I'm
Yep.
breathing deeply. I'm getting some oxygen
Yep.
in me. I'm interrupting whatever this thing is that has
Yep.
tried to knock me off. And those
Yep.
two things have become, and I don't know where I learned them. I learned them from somebody in recovery or yoga or whatever, and it worked. So when it works,
Yeah.
I'll keep doing it.
For sure.
So
Right.
pretty
Right.
simple
Right.
thing. If it's working, keep doing it. If it ain't working,
That's
stop.
right. 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 100%. 100%. So, um, I learned this years ago. It was a course called Learning How to Learn on Coursera. And in that course, the woman, I forget the name of her. I know I have her book in here somewhere. Um, but the prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning brain, can really only keep about 4 things going on at any one given time, right? So It can make decisions and do things, but you give it more than four things, that's when anxiety and overwhelm start to creep up, right? You'd be like, you ever sit there and be like, I need to do this, I need to do this. Oh shit. Once you get to the fourth thing and you're like, oh man, if I add one more thing, I'm fucked. Right? Like, and that's what happens because you can only keep like about four things and you can barely even keep them in there well. So what happens, and like you're mentioning, right? Okay, you've rewired yourself, right, over time to say, all right, I feel this in my chest. I'm going to do this now, right? It didn't happen overnight. You probably missed a couple times where like, man, I tightened up and what I didn't do the thing I know how to do, but I know how to do it, right? Why didn't I do it? Doesn't really matter. Nobody really cares. It's just important to realize that you don't beat yourself up that you didn't do it. It's good to know that you can, and good to know that like, hey, I'm gonna try and catch it next time, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, okay, you give yourself the, all right, I feel it. Feel the anxiety and overwhelm. You're not even thinking yet because it hits your body, right? You're just signaled. You feel it. So that immediately triggers your brain to say, all right, well, this is what I want to do now. So you take a deep breath. You feel the breath going down in your belly, right? I'm holding up two, right? And then maybe you think of like something. You got to do the count, right? And then like maybe you got to think about like something and throw in anything else. But even there, right then and there, you've given your executive you've taken three of the guards at the gate and giving them something to do other than being like, freak out, man. It's time to freak out. We're freaking out. We are freaking out. Everybody in line, right? Instead, you said, hey, this is what when I feel this, this is what I do. This is what I do. And this goes back, this goes, and I'm going to Zig Ziglar, one of the old times of motivation. Um, but oh shit, I forgot what it was at this point in time now, but like, you know, you just I forget what it was, man. I forget what it was. I know it so well though. At any rate, you've got something else that focuses the mind and you stop thinking about all the shit, right? And that's usually the other thing too. So again, for the listeners out there, I'm not really trying to sell the book. I just want to have a conversation with Dan. If I want to try and sell the book, we'd be talking more about it. But it's the stuff that's in there, right? And so there is stuff in there that's going to help you. We talk about the box breathing, but what I talk about with the group, when I'm in there with the group, is I say, hey man, if I can get you to stop thinking about all your shit for about 20 30 seconds because you got a lot of shit going on in your life right now. I know you do, otherwise you wouldn't be in here in this room with me today, right? I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. If I can stop all that for 30 seconds, would that be good for you? Nobody ever says no, right?
Right.
And the other thing I tell them, hey, say, hey man, if I tell you that this breath work practice that we do what's called coherent breath work, which is 5 in, 5 out for 5 minutes, right? That's called a coherent breath work. It'll get your heart aligned with your lungs because your lungs drive your heart rate, right? And that'll also get your pulse in alignment. And if you're I think a Heart Math Institute fan, you'll see it. Like they show like how it all comes into alignment, and that'll keep you at ease for the rest of the day. But that's not all, Dan. Like lowers your cortisol levels by up to 50%. That's a 50,
Mm.
right? And for those of you that don't know, we know what cortisols are. Cortisols are your stress hormones, right? So if I tell you that I could lower your stress, we're just going to pretend like that it's a direct correlation. And I know that it's not. I'm not a scientist or a doctor. Um, but let's just pretend that that has a direct correlation and says you get 50% less stress in your life. What would that look like for you? Would you be willing to have 50% less stress in your life? Right? And usually, man, it's a room full of recovery. So sometimes I don't get so much of a response, because everybody's just, again, got shit on their mind. But I'll be like, all right, man, is there anybody in the room that would like more stress? And nobody wants more stress, right? We all, we,
Me,
we,
me,
we
me.
usually, right. We usually get a laugh out of it. And it was funny, actually, last week I told him, there was one guy in there one time. I was like, man, I work better when I'm under pressure. I was like, okay, cool. And then, to the room, I was like, well, I don't know where that guy is today, but, I call it bullshit. But, so nobody wants more stress. And again, these are the tools that give it to you. And usually, the other thing I like about breath work, Dan, is how often do you leave the house without your breath? Right? Like, there's nothing else to rely on other than yourself, which is a great place to start. Right? And then, for the people that are in the steps, I mean, I'm not a stepper myself, transparently. We had this conversation a long time ago, but I just know how this stuff aligns. And then what happened for me was I went back and looked at the 12 steps for myself after my own journey, and so much of what I went through lined up almost exactly already without having, so for me, at the end of the day, when I got to the 12th step, you know, I found, my connection to source, higher power, and I had to go share it. And that's what I'm doing with this work. It's like, all right, man, I found a place that we can all get to. We can all get here if we want to. And if you get to this place that's available to every one of us, you'll be running out there and sharing it too, right? But if you can get to this place for yourself, man, you're gonna find a whole nother world's open for you, and you'll find that it's gonna be a lot easier to let go of some of the things you've been holding on to,
Yep.
right? I mean,
No doubt.
that's all I'm trying to do.
Yep. I could maybe bring a couple things I've always said, and I don't know in my meditation practice, and and you said four. I have two distinct channels I got to clog up. I gotta entertain. I know, and I've found that, and that's one of the things like some kind of mantra
Hmm.
or counting and
That's right.
breathing and
Yep.
concentrate on and if I get those two channels to like be busy doing something, then
That's
I
right.
can actually like let go of all the rest for a few minutes, because
Yep.
because one of my favorite things that I joke around and there's a couple different books I joke around about writing, but one of them is that there's a line and everybody says it. I got a lot going on, or I'm going through a
Yeah.
lot. Everybody,
Right. Right. Right.
it's constant. Now there's a meme I saw once that said, because you ask somebody how you been doing, busy, and
Yeah.
I saw this meme. It said, let's stop telling everybody how busy. Let's quit telling each other how busy we are,
Hmm.
which was hit me. I made my own that way once. Um, I have all these people on this podcast that bring different ways of this, and I don't even know what like term, some people would say self-help, personal development, spiritual connection, all this stuff, this thing that both of us are, me and you are aiming at and have
Right.
found
Right. Right.
somewhat
Yeah.
by accident, right? I
Sure.
didn't
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
go, I wasn't searching for this when I got here. I was just
That's
trying to
right.
find something. I was trying to put down the dope and booze and not go to prison, what I was trying
For
to
sure.
do.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah. Good for you.
yeah, and I have been able to do both those things at some level. Uh,
Yeah.
but I noticed that it's a parallel thing of these people will come and I hear them share with me their techniques and their stuff, and I can almost like go, oh yeah, that's just like step four. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's just like
Right.
and these
Yeah.
parallel this set of principles that goes all the way back to stuff. If you read Buddha, if you probably how old is that? What did you say? What was the book you
The
said?
I Ching. Yeah. Yeah.
The I
They're
Ching.
over 3,000
That,
years old. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Same
Yeah.
principles, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
But
sir.
like we're born and we start at zero again, right?
Yeah, man.
And here
Yeah.
you are at
Yeah.
35 years old in a mess trying to figure out what am I gotta do something different,
Yeah.
And where
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going with that is that one of my friends who I just mentioned a minute ago, somebody, and I don't know who's responsible for it, but they come to school, high school early in the morning and they do meditation and breath work at school in the morning
Mm,
before they start the day in high school. And I
nice.
like, man, that should be required curriculum,
Yeah.
man. That should
Yeah.
not be an option to do. It's an option. You can come and show up.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
they have a pretty good showing too, and I'll bet $100 if you would probably look at report cards and conduct and various other things, you probably would actually be able to metric that benefit.
Yeah, there's no doubt, right? I think they actually did it in New York public schools as well. Like, I mean, the deal is, and you'll find in the book that the science supports it, right? Science supports what it's doing. I talked about how you're going to interact with your vagus nerve when we breathe in through our nose. As a matter of fact, even just breathing in through your nose will be a game changer because you're taking in nitric oxide, not to be confused with nitrous oxide. And what the nitric oxide is, and if for the people that don't know, it's a vasodilator, right? And the vasodilator is going to open up your blood vessels and it's going to make it easier for your heart to work, right? And again, just kind of, this is the general spiel. It's like almost all the time, Dan. I can't stop myself once I get going. But so once
That's okay, man.
when, your heart sends more information to the brain than the brain to the heart, right? So if your heart is sending up this whole bunch of information, being like, hey, suddenly we're not stressed out and freaking out, right? And then your brain's gonna be like, got it. We're gonna attend to some other shit then, right? And it's just like eventually, like you're out of like there's something else that like isn't heightened that the brain's got to pay attention to. Resources are freed for you to focus on other things. Like so, the other piece of this is once you get out of survival, right? So when you're in survival, which most of us are all the time, we wake up, we get our coffee. Oh my God, I'm late. Where's my underwear? Got to find my socks. Got to brush my teeth. Car won't start. Son of a bitch. Got to get the car to start. Got to get to work. Boss is pissed off at me because I'm late. Oh my God, I'm gonna skip lunch today because I came in late today. Get to the end of the day, you've got your family you got to take care of. The dog needs to go out. Dinner's got to get done. Bills have got to get paid. Shit, I don't want to miss my favorite show. By the time you get to sleep, it's like a shit show. Everything, all that happened all day long. The whole
It's a
full tilt,
phenomenal amount of things we have to do just to make a day go by.
but it's all full tilt all the time. We are in survival, right?
Yep.
All we see is the next step and the way out, right? So, how's a fish? What's the line? It's like, how does a fish know that it's out of water, right? When you put it back in, right? You put that fish back in water, it's like, oh shit, I've been out of water, right? Same thing with us. How do you know what your natural state is? You kind of don't if you've been stuck in survival for so long. So if I introduce you to your natural state, you almost melt. Dan, you talk about getting in that puddle, right? You talk about distracting yourself enough where like life can just appear for you, right? It opens up. Lotus blossom shit, right? Like they've got that signal for like a reason. Life opens up and blossoms for you, and you don't have to be the guy doing it, right? You don't have to be the one that's saying, man, it's time to awaken. It's time to, you said we stumbled into it, right? It's kind of like when we watch anything else grow, though, in life. Anything else, we go out there, we plant the seeds. That's all we can do. We can tend to them. But I can't tell you when the corn's going to be ready, and I can't tell you when that flower is going to blossom. I know, though, that if I keep showing up and I keep tending to it, it's going to blossom. Something's going to happen, right? It's going to show up. Same
Yep.
thing's going to happen with you when you do these practices, right? Same thing. You go through these 12 steps, you stick with it, you go through the processes, you do some of the breath work that I share with you in here. You get the scientific facts and the reasons why it works that supports it, and you can stop thinking about it as woo woo and for tree huggers only, right? And give it an option. And then at the end of the day, you're going to be mad because it works, but you can be glad because you're doing it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yep. It's a funny thing how, and it's kind of like meditation, and it's funny to like to try and promote that. And breathing's a similar thing, right? Because you're doing it already. You're breathing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
not on purpose, not with some intent
Right.
behind it. But I think it's funny that when we ask, I ask a guy to sit and do nothing just for like 5 minutes every morning, just for
Mm-hmm.
starters, 3 to 5 minutes every morning, just do nothing. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's
It's
asking me
hard.
a lot to do nothing. Now, hold on a
It's
minute.
hard.
Uh,
Yeah.
so sit and do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Winnie the Pooh thing that says, they say nothing is impossible, but I do a bit of nothing every day.
There
And
it is.
and I like that one too. That because these things are not hard.
Mm-mm.
There's nothing hard about meditation or breathing techniques. Nothing. But golly, man, is it funny how hard it seems to get the point across to somebody or to make the case that to try it.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's another thing too. Like I remember when I first started going into these groups and talking about. Well, I was talking about a couple things in these groups. Actually, one of Brandon's friends had passed away, and one of the guys that I knew and I'd originally taught passed away. I was like, man, how do you handle it? You come in here, you're running these groups, you get close to these people, you're personal with them, and they pass, right? And he said a couple things that have stuck with me. Well, first thing is said is, well, you count the wins, right? You count the wins. The other thing he said to me is like, you either get the message or you are the message. And I was like, oh shit, man, right? Like, I mean, it's tough, but you count the wins because so if I get one person in the room of 20 that comes up to me and is like, man, that was thank you, right? Or if they're like, hey, this happened, help me out, help me understand what just happened, help me understand what just happened, right? I still remember a couple young kids, man, they couldn't have been like more than 19, 18, sitting next to each other, and they both like had this mind-blowing experience that you can have with breath work, right? And they jumped up, they're like, what just, there's like, oh man, I was like, awesome, right?
Yeah.
So like when you get to participate in that, you get to see the work working. You get one or two people that leave the room, and I'll have people come back that I had no idea that it worked for them. People come back, man, that first time I came and did your breath work with you, Brandon, I cried. I let go. I surrendered. Right? I
Nice.
got to that place. Right? So, man, you take the wins, and for anybody listening out there, again, check out the book if you're into it. If you want to learn more, it's an easy read. Dan, like you said, you pick it up, read it in an evening. Even if you don't like to read, you can read it in an evening. You talked about mantras. What I do, so we talked a little bit about box breathing in here. Like those are just specific patterns. For those of you that don't know, it's just like a 4 count in, 6 count out, whatever, various patterns. And what you'll find in this book, there's a lot of box breathing, but there's different mantras kind of in each one for the steps, right? So just like you were talking about, Dan, focus on the breath, focus on a mantra. And when you do that, we'll call it like you're chasing ghosts away, right? You're chasing ghosts away when you do that. And those ghosts are the things that pop up in your head that'll be like, yeah, but you fucked up over here. Yeah, but you fucked up over here. And you'd be like, give yourself the grace to just go through the practice and chase the ghost away.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, my one of the things that when my buddy was here, besides that, I turned to this quick reference portion in here. It's titled Quick Reference Guide, Emergency Breathing Techniques, man. And
There you go.
you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
say, okay, hey, because and this has happened to me and it still does. And today I have tools, so I don't ask myself this often anymore. But for a long time, there was a mantra in my head that was, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I remember that was something that would hit me on. I'd be in a pinch, man, and I'm
Yeah.
in my head, I don't know what to do, man. I don't know what to do. And like it
Yeah.
was so some people gave me some tools on something to do, and I
Yeah.
was like, hey,
Right.
all
Right.
right. And and that's what this has got too, right here,
That's right.
man. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll look in here and maybe I'm freaking out here and I'm having a craving, so let me try this. And that
Right.
even just picking it up and using the tool is that
Right.
redirect.
That's it.
Not to
Yeah.
mention that the actual breathing techniques and stuff actually work it too. Besides that,
That's right.
it's pretty cool. And I like I like tools that are laid out for me to use that tell me what to do that I'm not having to figure out. And that's what I read when I read some books, man. I get done with it, and sometimes I
Yeah.
don't even know what I just read. Although I stumbled
That's right.
across
That's
some
right.
pretty cool little things in it here and
For
there,
sure.
and I
Yeah.
picked
Yeah.
up some things, but I get done with it and it's going on the shelf and never getting looked at again.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And I
I
don't know,
know what
this
you
is the
mean.
kind of book you're going to pick up again that sits around
No, I
close to you.
appreciate that, Dan. No, I appreciate that. Man, like I said, thought of you when I finished it up, and I appreciate you, having me on here and talking about it today. Anybody's that picks it up, let me know. Any questions about it? Always happy to talk. You can reach out to me. I'm gonna close this off here, Dan. My kids are waiting for me too. So, you know, um, the book, was written under Spiritual Dope, but my name is Brandon Hanley. You can reach out to me. You can find me out on Facebook, Instagram. I got the podcast right now. You can actually go find Dan on the podcast. It's currently titled Spirit of the Deal, but Stan still got a spot on there back when we were doing Spiritual Dope. I'm not out there like slinging anything except for a hope slinger, right? A little bit of a hope slinger, man. And you heard me talking about, this guy Brandon Novak, and if you don't know him, he's opened I think, or over 6 houses for recovery, for sober people. He's got a recovery facility right now. He's getting ready to open another one shortly. And I don't say that to like pitch him and boost him. For first of all, thanks for Brandon for letting me come and doing what I do there. But I share it because this dude 13 times in and out of recovery. A lot of people lost hope on him. A lot of people lost hope on him. And one of the things that I always talk about, Dan, when I do the breath work, I start it all when I do these sessions with these guys. I have, and gals, I have them breathe in the energy that they need to support them today, right? I don't care what it is. I don't care, but what I always have them breathe in is acceptance, love, trust, courage, faith, uh, and, but all those things in themselves first, right? You breathe it in, always available, inexhaustible supply from infinite universe, always available. You can give it to yourself first, though, right? Give yourself faith, faith in yourself, trust in yourself, acceptance in yourself, belief in yourself, courage, you know, to take that next step, right? And if you ever find yourself off the path, everybody finds themselves off the path. Everybody. I don't care. It doesn't necessarily have to be drugs, liquor, alcohol, pornography, whatever. Everybody has fallen off the fucking path at some point and had to get back on. That's all you're doing. You're just getting back on your path, man. So hopefully this is helpful. Dan, I love what you do out there. You put this out there for a lot of people. I know you're hanging it up for a little bit, but I know that you're also going to keep it running. People come over to you. I know that when we were first talking, how people would reach out to you and say how grateful they were that you're putting it out there, putting out what you're putting out there, helping people out there so that they're not alone, right? They know that they're not alone, especially when you're putting out what you're putting out there. And I hope to continue to do the same. And thanks for letting me come on to help contribute to that, Dan.
Yeah, man. I always say the one common denominator that my guests have, and if some of them are not do not. Sometimes I think I'm actually part of the message is for me to teach them a little bit about 12 steps because they're not. So we share and we they give me and I give you and we trade off this energy. But the one thing in common that I like to say is that there's a whole lot of folks out there like you who are out as a force for the good.
That's
And
it, man.
if you're looking in certain places, the world doesn't seem like that. If you're looking in certain places, but I keep on having a steady stream of beautiful human beings that are actually out doing good in this world and trying to help other folks enjoy this trip on this big blue marble. And you're another one of them, man. I appreciate to being your friend.
Awesome, Dan. Thank you so much for having me on today.
All right, man. Have a good one. Enjoy your kids.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Dan, yeah, man, like I said, appreciate you having me on. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you as you're coming along. And if you can think of it, if you think of anybody else that might be a fit for the book conversation, let me know. I'd be happy to send them a copy and have a conversation with them as well in the
Okay.
podcast space.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll do that.
Cool.
All
Anything
right.
else I can do for you, brother?
Not at the moment.
Good
Good
to
talking
catch
to
up
you.
with you,
Good
Dan.
catching up with you, man.
All right. Bye now.
All right. Good night.